On today's episode, as we dive in too deep with myself and Neal Driscoll, we're going to talk about Jalen Ramsey, as Adam Schefter has reported that there is far more interest than the media has led us on to believe in a trade for the star cornerback. So we're going to dive into that because it sounds like a trade could be imminent as soon as June starts. Also, we are going to discuss a few other things, including a deeper dive into the schedule and much more. Do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you are new, and as always, let's get into this one.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field down the near side, that open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown again! Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw. Blitz coming. They get to him. No, he takes off running. And he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jalen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We're back here for another one. Appreciate you all tuning in as you come through. Please do us a favor, smash the like button. We are back for another episode of Fin Too Deep. Just a programming note. Expect a video to release tomorrow morning as I have a pretty good conversation coming out between myself and Alf Artiega from 3 yards per carry that you're going to want to check out tomorrow morning. All right, Neal. I mean, we'll dive deep into the schedule here in a little bit, but hey, man, another week has gone by, and Dolphins kind of took a dub yesterday on that schedule, and we'll talk about it here in a bit. But how you feeling as minicamp just wrapped up? We had our first look at Jonah Savaianaya, Kenny Grant. Our boy Kenny Grant said, hey, I'm a culture changer. Talked about, the trench guys were all talking about setting the tone. Let's start there. How are you feeling, especially coming off of the heels of rookie minicamp, where we got some really good sound bites, Neal, and there's a feeling and an aura to this draft class that they're a little hungry and they're a little, I don't know, man. It's not a sexy draft class, but they got us feeling sexy with the energy they're giving off, man. It feels like we got some leaders and some impact players in this draft class that are gonna make some noise in year one, Neal.
Yeah, I kind of dub it the instant impact draft class, where we know for sure we have two bona fide starters day one, Kenny Grant and Jonah Savaianaya. There's nothing that's going to change that. Grant's going to be, starting on the defensive line, and Jonah's going to start on the offensive line, right? I think Dante Trader is going to be a guy that does see the field, maybe not as a full-time starting safety.
At least special teams.
And maybe even kind of like a young Brandon Jones did in our defenses, that third safety making plays around the box. I think you'll see that from him. Ollie Gordon, to me, is a guy that is going to fight his way for carries here this year, right?
Okay.
But, it's good to see this class because I think it is a class for our Miami Dolphins teams that kind of at a crossroads of going from we're all in, F those picks, to okay, let's build this team for the long haul. And I think this is the first draft class, heavy, physical, trenches, good character, good leader type of guys. And, I think you see a lot of unity from these young rookies early, which I think is
Yeah.
really cool. We saw Kenny Grant had the whole crew together and they snapped
Yeah.
that picture.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems like there's a cohesiveness there that's not
It does.
typically there in draft classes.
I
And,
agree.
from some of the things and people that I've talked to, Kenny Grant looked ultra light as a big dude running around moving. I heard like just staggering movement skills for his size is kind of what I've been hearing. No surprise to me. I think that, I've even seen some of those clout chasing NFL Twitter handles be like, did the Dolphins strike gold with Kenny Grant and all that type of stuff. And, I think he's going to be a difference maker. He's going to be a foundational piece. And, suddenly, you look at the Dolphins defensive front, and if you count the pass rushers, that's going to be a really strong group if everyone can stay healthy. And it's going to be the strength of the defense. And I'm excited to see it. This is my least favorite time of the year, though, man, where it's like the draft happened, you get a little taste of football, and then it goes radio silent for 2 months.
But I don't think it will this time because we're going to talk about it. I think we're going to have some Jalen Ramsey news in June, and I think we're going to have an addition, maybe even multiple, maybe even a free agent or in a trade, or at least one of the two. So I think there will be some June news to hold us over here a little bit. But what's great about Kenneth Grant, man? I know it's just the underwear Olympics at minicamp, but man, the things that I was told were far more impressive than the things that I heard about Mason Graham's mini camp in Cleveland. So, I mean, I'll take that as a W. And, with this, I don't know, man. I think, we compare, I don't want to say compare, but we can all pretty much agree he's the it took a year, but he's the replacement for Christian Wilkins. Talk about how, at least from my opinion, you look at the athleticism. I think he's a better athlete. I think the upside's higher than it was with Wilkins, with Kenneth Grant. But also, like, when you were just talking there, it clicked with me, and this thought just popped into my head. But he's so much different than Christian Wilkins as a leader. Wilkins was the joker, the blah, blah, blah. Kenneth Grant looks like he's coming in here and it's all business, baby. Like, I want to be the best. We need to win. I know what it takes to win. Let's go get this. Not, let's talk about my mama and let's joke around. Like, it seems like it's going to be a lot more business and a lot more follow my lead type of leadership and I'm not, Christian Wilkins is a good leader in his own way, but this one feels like it's going to be a lot more and down to getting it done with Kenneth Grant than it was with Christian Wilkins. I don't know.
100%. And it's not going to be long. Kenny Grant's going to be a better football player than Christian Wilkins. I'll say it. I don't care if it's spicy. It's spicy.
I agree with that.
I think he's going to be a better player. And that's one thing that, and kind of tongue in cheek,
You're breaking up, brother. Pretty hard.
Same with Jordan Phillips. Jordan Phillips is that type of guy. It's all football 24/7, no time off. Jonah Savaiinaea, the first thing he's saying is let's get to work when they draft him. It's a business-like atmosphere from this draft class, and I really like to see that. I think you got some guys that probably went a little bit later in the draft than they anticipated, and I circle and star Ollie Gordon. Guys like that, they have a choice to make. Do they feel sorry for themselves and sit around and feel bad, or do they go take the opportunity they're given and prove everyone wrong? And I just really, it's early, so you don't want to put the cart before the horse. But this is a draft class that screams, we're here for football. We're not here for strip clubs. We're not here for South Beach. And it's one of the biggest things I think the Dolphins need to solve. And it seems like they did a lot of due diligence in those interview processes and their scouting, finding the people that can come in, get the playbooks, hit the lab, and just totally dedicate everything they do to becoming the best version of themselves, which is awesome. Dude, I saw some of your tweets about Kenny Grant this week, and I'm like, yeah, man, this guy is everything we want him to be already. And it's crazy. He's still a baby. Like, this guy's going to get stronger. I don't know if you like the guy who hit the sled to me that like changed the way I look at it was Cameron Wake. He used to hit that damn thing, dude. And I'd sit there and be like, holy shit, this guy's just different. Kenny Grant, when he hits that sled with his hands, the power that he can enforce in a short distance, it's unbelievable, man. Like, he is a strong dude. He is probably one of the strongest dudes we've had in that defensive front, definitely since Ndamukong Suh, no doubt, right? Like, and it starts in the middle. And, I'll be honest, I was driving and I was listening anonymously in a Buffalo Bills space the other day.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about how the Dolphins got Kenny Grant and Jonas Avenea, and that they were a little nervous because it seems like the Dolphins were getting a little bit wise and focused on the trenches. And 2 or 3 different speakers were talking about, their defensive line's instantly better with Kenny Grant. And they were even saying, despite losing Calais Campbell, right? And I always like to hear what other people, the enemies, say about us. You know what I mean? Because sometimes we do get blinded by the aqua and the orange. But, man, it's an exciting draft class. It's one of those draft classes that gets you excited to watch some of the preseason football,
Yeah. What do you think about what Chop Robinson and what Achane said, and what they indicated, that basically a culture change is going on, and it seems like these guys are working a little bit harder this year? This after Jordan Poyer just went on Good Morning Football and said, we didn't have a good team last year, and he wasn't good last year. But, it feels like with these young guys, bro, it feels like they're getting the old heads out, because they're like, we're not going to be able to change the culture and get through to guys who have been around the league and had multiple contracts. And obviously we brought in guys who had won previously, like Ramsey and Tyreek, and that hasn't worked out for us. So we got to go about this another way. The easiest way to change culture is to bring in young kids who this will be all they know, what they learn here and what they're used to here. And you got to find guys who are about football, especially in South Florida with all those temptations. So what do you think? Do you think that they're trying to change the culture a little bit here?
Yeah, you know how we always like to use wrestling analogies. It reminds me of when Hulk Hogan went to WCW and it was the New Generation era, right? And
yeah.
Like, what I see is I'll be honest, I don't even care what Chop or Achane really say. I just like they're taking the mic and becoming leaders of this football team. And it's kind of like out with the old, in with the new. We know Jalen Ramsey is on his way out. We probably know that Tyreek Hill, if he's not on his best behavior, probably isn't long for Miami.
Yeah.
The next 2 guys that make sense for me to step up are Devon Achane and Chop Robinson. I think they're 2 of the nucleus of this football team going forward. And when I think about the nucleus going forward, to me, there's a lot of questions about a lot of players, right? Like Tyreek, it's hard to put him in there. I think Tua is definitely a leader of this football team, but it's a little bit hard to count on them due to some of the availability stuff. I think Achane, Kenny Grant, and Chop Robinson are square in the middle of the nucleus of this football team right now. All 3 of those guys are going to be here, hopefully, for the long haul. And, I don't even want to put the cart before the horse here, but, Devon Achane to me is a guy that you figure out how to pay when his contract comes up, because we're not far from that. And maybe you get a year ahead of it after this season so that you're not playing games later.
Yeah.
But, I'll say this. Chop Robinson, when they took him last year, right? I think it's fair to say, his approach to last season, it would have been easy for him to get lost in the shuffle. And then Chubb never came back, and Phillips went down, and then Chop Robinson had to step, and then Shaquille Barrett retired. So out of nowhere, Chop Robinson had to go from being the 3rd or 4th guy to being the guy. And he didn't fail to deliver, right? So his approach, it mirrors kind of what we're seeing this time. And I like that they know what the stigma is about this football team, because honestly, for years, I think a lot of us have known what's been wrong with the Dolphins, but none of the players seem to have the guts to face it in the eyes, and I love that. And I love what Devon Achane saying. He's probably the smallest guy on the team, but he ain't afraid to run away from it, right? And you need to have some type of swagger about yourself when you're a football team.
Yeah. For sure. You good?
Yeah. Is it keep freezing?
It keeps freezing. You freeze like 3 or 4 times. It might be because you're in the basement and internet's usually, unless your heart.
My Starlink's right here.
Oh, okay. I don't know. So, bro, this is the iPad life, bro. Yeah. So let me get your thoughts. Let's talk about this. So yesterday, the schedule came out. And when you look at the schedule, usually our tough stretch is at the end of the season, right ready to set us up for disappointment. But this year, we got that schedule right in the middle of the season, and we kind of got it lined up in terms of, if things don't go our way against the Ravens, the Bills, and the Commanders in Spain in that stretch, you go into a bye. So then you come out and you have a chance to kind of redeem yourself and get your feet back underneath you with the Saints and the Jets coming out of the bye that can build some momentum leading up into the Steelers, the Bengals, the Bucks, and the Patriots. And, even the Steelers, the Bengals, and the Bucks, I think we got better roster even with our losses in those teams. And, the Bengals are in the same situation we are. They don't know how healthy they're going to be by the time we face off in week 16. And then, you look at the first 8 weeks, Neal, other than week 3, Thursday Night Football in Buffalo, and week 6 at home against the Harbaugh Chargers, I see, I see 6-2, 7-1 over the first 8 games. What are your thoughts on this schedule? Because we kind of, they kind of worked in our favor, especially on that back end, man. If that stretch against the Commanders, the Ravens, and the Bills don't go right, man, where that bye is placed and the 2 games coming out of that, bro, those are key to get your legs back under you.
Yeah, look, if you follow me, you know that I am not as high on the Dolphins as I have been in the past. But with that said, I think if you take the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Ravens out of the equation, the Dolphins, if they play their A game, could beat anyone in the AFC. I truly think that. And, it's one of those things. Look, the NFL thinks very highly of the Dolphins, I guess, this year because they got more primetime games than the Baltimore Ravens, who are, the third Super Bowl favorite. So, I think the Dolphins are a team that's very marketable. 5 primetime games, a 6th isolated game against Jaden Daniels in Madrid. But I do think that the schedule's kind of like it starts pretty easy. You have a tough patch in the middle, but then it gets a lot easier at the end. And, look, I think Drake May has a lot of potential to be a good quarterback in this league, but we beat the shit out of him last year. And I'll be honest, I don't think the Patriots are this world beater. I think people are overrating their draft. I think
they're I think their draft is good, but I think they're 2 more drafts and 2 more good off seasons away from catching up to us. Like, I think they'll be ahead of the Jets in 2 years. I think the Jets are going to be the cellar dwellers. But, bro, I agree with you. I think we're going to sweep the Jets and them again, and it really comes down to, can you at least take one against Buffalo?
Well, if the Dolphins are the front runners that we've seen them be, their schedule says they're going to win a lot of football games because there's a lot of games on there that they should beat.
The first half, right?
The Panthers, the Saints, the Colts, a Steelers team led by Mason Rudolph. Like, these are the games the Miami Dolphins win. Like, and what I like about it also is that soft schedule to start the season means that you'll probably get happy Tyreek Hill. It means that you probably are.
And other than the Bengals in the final 6 games, Neal, who are you worried about?
Right. Well, and look, we saw the schedule release and we saw what the Colts did and redacted.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what did you think of all that?
Well, if I'm Tyreek,
he chopped up again. If people don't know what we're talking about, what had happened was, and I'll let him go because now he's back with us. But the Colts and the Chargers both did Minecraft release schedules. And what had happened was, with good old boy Tyreek, they had a dolphin, him as a dolphin getting arrested by the Coast Guard, and the Chargers had him late to a meeting with Baker Mayfield, meeting with the Dolphins brass on a yacht. What did you think about it? Because I actually thought it was hilarious.
And I'm going to take my handsome mug off to see if that helps my internet speed up here for a second. But I think, look, dude, I don't even know why they took it back, to be honest. Tyreek seemed like he didn't care about it. Like, it's out there. If you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Like, don't be an idiot and get arrested by the Coast Guard, right? Like, but the competitor in me says that if you're Tyreek Hill, man, Julius, Brent, whoever the hell the cornerbacks that are going to be lining up against me week 1, you better bring your freaking lunchbox because I'm toasting you. I'm making a fool out of you when everybody's overreacting in week 1. one of the headlines that's going to be on the ticker on the bottom is Tyreek Hill, 7 catches, 204 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's how I would think about it if I'm Tyreek Hill. I think that's bulletin board material to motivate. We limped into last season, if you remember, because Tyreek got pulled over. They were flat against Jacksonville. They looked like shit. And, it almost bit them in the ass, right? Like, this could be exactly what this team needs to give them some venom. Like,
true.
This could be something that pushes them. And, man, I think the schedule release is a lot of fun. I think it's good. I'm with you. I think the Dolphins have every opportunity to win a lot of games fast. And you say, we could say they lose week 3 to Buffalo, but they can easily be 5-1. And, you go 5-1, you got the Saints, the Jets, the Patriots in the back half of that year. I mean, all you really have to do is not mess up
at the end. You don't got to mess up at the end. And for all of you that don't know, I'm going to play the clips here. I'm going to play the clips here so you guys can see exactly what we're talking about. So here's what the Chargers did with poking fun in their Minecraft about Tyreek Hill. Here's the Chargers. There you go. You see him late to the meeting or whatever. And then here is what the Colts did with their Minecraft. So,
funny, man. I think they were all pretty funny, to be honest.
Yeah, they were jokes, but we really dropped the ball on not doing a GTA 6 trailer, eh? Like, they should have taken the GTA 6 trailer and flipped it into our schedule release. Like I tweeted out yesterday, like GTA 6 is basically based in the fictional version of Miami and Florida, right? So you might as well have rocked that. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I love Zach Thomas. Zach Thomas is in my Mount Rushmore of professional athletes.
But bro, that felt like an AI, like put in the chat GPT, make me one. Like even the Tua, like when they had the players looking like those, bro, the old Fox robots in the 90s on NFL Sunday looked better than those AI generated football players, Neil.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins always do like a B- grade in social and their marketing and media. I thought it was okay. It was adequate, but it didn't leave me, laughing or wanting more. It was kind of just what you would expect of the Dolphins.
Yeah. So, all right, let's get into some of the big news here, and that would be Jalen Ramsey. Now, Adam Schefter, Neil, on ESPN, he had this to say on a segment yesterday, so I'm going to go ahead and play it and listen to what he says.
Jalen Ramsey. Miami Dolphins have talked about the fact that they are open to a potential trade. They cannot make a trade until June 1st due to the salary cap ramifications, but we are getting closer to June 1st, and you always could agree to a deal and have it done in principle and then process it on June 1st. But I would expect at some point in early June, we're going to get a Jalen Ramsey trade somewhere. There's been more interest, I think, than people realize.
Love that. Ramsey signed a 3-year, $72 million extension with the Dolphins back in September, just a reminder.
So there you go. There is more interest than people realize in Jalen Ramsey. That's exactly from Schefter's, and it sure sounds like he indicated that it sure sounds like there's not only a deal in works that one team may be pushing to have it done before the June 1st. Where are you at with this Ramsey deal? I mean, it feels like within the first week of June, latest, this thing's going to get wrapped up.
Right. Yeah, I'll start by saying at first I'm a little surprised that was no ability for reconciliation between Ramsey and the Dolphins, because there wasn't this like landmark moment that was negative that happened. And, I also think that there's got to be some accountability for Jalen Ramsey, who frankly just didn't play up to the name and the billing last year, to be honest. With that said, where the Dolphins are heading and how they, approach this year's draft, I want them to be the team that's developing via draft picks. And I actually think the Dolphins are going to be able to fetch a 3rd-round pick when all is said and done here now.
Yeah.
And when you look at their draft capital for next year, that would be their third round pick on the books already. and you never know what could happen, right? Like if a team was to sign Anthony Weaver to be their coach, we would get another 3rd-round pick. And, we have a 4th-round compensatory pick coming for Javon Holland. So what I'm seeing is.
And, I know
A lot like the Baltimore Ravens lately. And, if a guy doesn't want to be here, there's no point to get on your knees begging for him to stay. I'm glad there's a lot of interest in the in Ramsey, and I want them to leverage it together to go get the best option they can for him.
Yeah. So, I got my show coming out with Alf tomorrow, and we talk about the Ramsey thing in depth. And from, I was the first to report that there was a disconnect between Ramsey and McDaniel, and diving deeper into it, what we do and what we talk about is basically the word on the street is that the falling out with McDaniel had to do with, McDaniel had his clique of players he would talk to at training camp and on the sideline, like during practice, he would get the message through to them, and then they'd convey the message, to the defense. So Robert Hunt was one of those guys. Tua was one of those guys. Ramsey was one of those guys. And really last year, Ramsey became one of those main guys again. And from what I understand, bro, McDaniel was calling him out in meetings in front of the whole team after games. And it was one of those things where I'm one of your best performing players and you're calling me out in front of the team. And McDaniel was trying to show, hey, if I'll call out our best player, then any of you can get it, basically. And Ramsey didn't like being, part of the issue with him and McDaniel is Ramsey didn't like being the example.
Yeah, and if that is the case, I think it's,
because you can't go buddy. Hey, it's your defense one day, and then try to flip and become a hard ass the next day and say, okay, well, I'm going to make an example of you now. That makes no sense, right? Like you especially with a superstar, you can't do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. And I honestly think this is. We talk about players this is going to be a humongous year for Mike McDaniel, man. Especially, I've said this a few months ago. There's going to be head coaches available at the end of the season that you won't think will. One is going to be Mike Tomlin. I think this is his last year in Pittsburgh. I think the Steelers are heading for a tough year. And once again, the front office did not give him the quarterback that he's been asking for years. This is a big year for Mike, man. And, you can't go hot and cold on players like that. You got to be careful on how you treat players, right? I also do think in the same breath, though, it is a little soft of Jalen Ramsey to be that upset, right? Play to the level, the gold jacket level that you come touted as, and that doesn't happen. But, that's the thing. I will say this, a lot of my problems with the Dolphins aren't talent related. I actually think the roster's a playoff roster. I thought that last year. I thought they were a Super Bowl roster the year before. My biggest concern on the team is the head coach and the availability of the quarterback. There's no other way to put it. I think our secondary is pretty poor. But to your point earlier, I think at the end of this, the Dolphins are going to be about $23 million, probably under the cap in June. And there's veteran cornerbacks out there.
Yeah, but they're not very good, bro.
Yeah, they're not. But there's always, can you pick up the phone and can you find the low-hanging fruit in the trade? Can you find someone?
That's what I think they're trying to do. I think that's what the play is. You already got the 3rd-round pick from moving back from 116. You get a 3rd or 4th from Ramsey. They're expecting the comp pick from Holland. They're going to sit there and say, we got a plethora of 3rd and 4th round picks. Let's try and trade one and get someone our own self.
I'll give you a name. That makes a lot of sense in a trade for them. And it's a team in Cleveland that I think is a very bad team. What would it take for them to part with a guy like Denzel Ward? And I don't think Denzel Ward is the player he was 3 years ago, but I still think he'd be a cornerback 1 on this team right now.
So trade Ramsey in the package.
Yeah. Could you get a guy like him back? Because I do think, he's a guy that, right, for numerous years in Cleveland has been a very, very good player for them.
Yeah.
Look, the Browns have 2 top 5 picks probably in next year's draft if you're looking at it honestly, and they're probably going to roll out with Joe Flacco for the starter for the first half.
Yeah. And If they need a safety, taking good old boy Caleb next year is going to be a
Pick at them
surefire
and see if you
pick.
get. Who say again?
I said if they have a need at safety and they want to take Caleb next year, that's going to be a surefire pick. You know what I mean? He's probably the best player in the draft next year. And if people don't know, we're talking about Caleb Downs from Ohio State. He's probably the best player in the draft next year.
Yeah, I love him, and I actually love the cornerback class, and I think the Dolphins are due for a corner. Avian Terrell from Clemson's probably my favorite corner in the class.
Yeah, AJ Terrell's brother.
Yeah, I love him, and I haven't watched the kid from Tennessee a lot yet, but I know the scouts are really high on him. I even like a guy that's more of a second-round player, Takario Davis, who transferred into Washington from Arizona. I think he's got the length that you look for. It's a good corner class, so I think that and that's where I'm really excited about the future of the Dolphins, because I think they did a really good job of focusing a little bit on the trenches. And next year, I think they're going to do a little bit of that too, but I also think they're going to look to get that secondary to where it needs to be. But yeah, man, it sucks that this Ramsey thing panned out the way it is, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. Like, if you don't want to be on the ship, get off.
Yeah. There's a couple good corners next year. Yeah. McCoy, you already talked about. He's pretty good.
DJ McKinney from Colorado is a kid that a lot of people like. Damani Jackson from Alabama.
That kid from Texas, Gullibo, he's pretty good.
And they like
Jalen Gullibo. He's pretty good.
And then they have another guy, Malik Muhammad, who I think is a preseason top 25 type of guy. I mean, look, there's like 6 round.
And you're probably going to get another. If he has a big year, you could get another top 10 running back in Jeremiah Love.
Jeremiah Love's a guy that's going to get a lot of love. No pun intended. Yeah. But yeah, man, it's a good secondary, dude. Because I love Caleb Downs. Like he's a
bro. Honestly, if them passing on like Emmanuel Ward and Malachi Starks somehow leads us to landing Caleb Downs next year, which is not going to happen because we probably won't have a top 10 pick, and you probably need a top 5 pick. But man, I would love. Oh man, he would be disgusting in the secondary, bro.
Well, the guy that I would get in round 2 is Alabama transfer from Michigan, Keon Saab. I love him. He's got great ball skills, man. Like, yeah, dude, we're already on 2026 draft mode. Secondary is probably the strength of it. Ironically, our biggest area of need last year was the trenches. It was the best draft for it. We took advantage of it. Next year, it's secondary. It's probably the biggest strength, and quarterback. I'll be interested to see if we take advantage of that as well.
Yeah. Have you watched that kid from Indiana too?
Was that D'Angelo Pounds?
No, Amari Farrell, the corner from Indiana.
I have not watched him. They have another guy, D'Angelo Pounds. They have Mikel Kamara, who's an edge. They have Elijah Surratt, who's a good receiver. The Indiana's got actually, and they got what's his name? Fernando Mendoza's their quarterback.
Yeah. They got a pretty good. Yeah. I still think next year, bro, if he takes the leap, I think Lenore Sellers probably goes 1 overall if he takes the leap. But obviously Nussmeier and Aller will be nipping at his heels. I think isn't Mateer coming out? Klubnik will come out.
Klubnik. Did you see your boy Jordan had Klubnik as the projected number 1 overall pick next year? Jordan
Reed?
From ESPN, Jordan Reed, yeah.
Really, eh? Yeah, I think if the step happens, well, that Lenore's might not. Well, Lenore's could stay another year, but I heard that South Carolina is bringing in a top transfer quarterback because they're expecting this to be Lenore's last year.
Yeah, I think you're going to see look at the connections. I think Nussmeier and the Saints make a lot of sense. The Browns were really high on Drew Aller coming out this year.
Yeah,
we all know that Arch is likely going to stay in. Arch isn't going to come out,
and so is Nico.
I think Sellers is a guy that probably would end up where somewhere like the Jets, and Klubnik's the next guy there.
Dude, Sellers, bro. If he goes to the Jets, that could be a nightmare for us. That kid, man, the ceiling on that kid, dude. Honestly, man.
That's why I'll tell you, we're not going to be in striking distance for one of those top 10. I think 4 guys are top 10 guys next year.
Yeah,
I don't think we're in the striking distance for one of them. And look, I it all depends on how Tua plays. If he can stay healthy, I still want to get a good player. Let's see what happens with Ewers. Let's see. But a guy that I would circle and start in round 2 is Taylon Green from Arkansas.
Yeah, I know a lot of people. Yeah, he's another guy that could rise his stock.
Oh yeah.
This year if he has a really good year. I know he's not. I don't think he's coming out this year, but I watched Aiden Childs from Michigan State, and
he's fun.
I see the View with him. You named for. There's also I know a lot of people are high on Sam Levitt coming out too, right?
Oh yeah, Arizona State. Yep, yeah, a lot of people do like him a lot.
Yeah. I think Kent Miller Moss comes out this year.
Yep.
What if Connor Wegman takes the step all of us thought he would take last year, and he takes it this year? I mean, that could be interesting at Texas A&M too, right?
And remember at this time last year, the number one pick in most mocks was Carson Beck, who's at Miami.
Yeah, I named him already. Dorian Mensah's coming out too, I think, right?
There's what's his name? I like the kid from Kansas, Jalen Daniels, a little bit.
Daniels, he's Jaden Daniels' cousin.
Yeah, I like him a little bit. So it's going to be a rich quarterback draft, and that's where it's like, it all depends on what version you get of Tua.
It is going to be. Yeah.
You know, if he stays healthy, first or second round, I think you got to go quarterback regardless, depending on what happens with Ewers, right?
Yeah.
But you know, if Tua can stay healthy, that gives you more options in round one to go get defensive back, and you know, see if someone's there in round two, and you don't have to force it. Like, you know, I don't think the Dolphins are one of those teams that are the Titans that are desperate. They had to take Cam Ward one. They had to, right? Like.
Yeah,
I don't think Cam Ward's going to be.
But they were offered a ton
in quarterback.
I don't know, man. I think that fourth quarter DNA, the guy he put a terrible defense on his back and was making shit happen. Like if you give him protection, I think he's going to be really good, bro. I think he's going to be the best since McNair and Warren Moon suited up for them, bro. You can see it, but are they going to properly surround him? That's going to be like. I mean, did you read that stuff about Caleb Williams today?
No. What?
Okay, so an article came out on ESPN talking about how Caleb and his dad were trying to avoid the Bears at all costs, basically.
Wow.
Caleb knew that Waldron was not going to work for him, and knew Everlift was basically a jabroni. And bro, there's an excerpt from it. It's crazy, dude. It says, check this out. I'll read it to you. It's because it's all about this book that's coming out. And it said, quote, the book sheds light on Williams' tumultuous rookie season in which both Eberflus and Walden were fired and the Bears lost 10 straight games. At times, Williams said he would watch film alone with no instruction or guidance from the coaches. Quote, no one tells me what to watch, Caleb Williams told his dad. I just turn it on.
Wow. I would say that coming into this season, he's one of the 5 players that have the most pressure on him because of
but I think Johnson will get him right.
Yeah, just Jaden Daniels' success and what that did for the Commanders versus where the Bears are. You know, I do think Caleb Williams is going to have a big ass year. And let's be frank, I think Drake May looked better than Caleb last year too. So you could sit there and say, and you know, I think he's under a lot of pressure. I mean, Anthony Richardson, I actually think he's going to need a miracle to even keep that job. To be honest, I think he's in for a long season, and the Colts are going to be drafting a quarterback in the top 10 next year. He's under a lot of pressure. I mean, there's a lot, and there's different types of pressure too, because I do think guys like Lamar Jackson are going to be in, because they're going to pay him before the season. He's going to be the highest paid player in football history here in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, probably. And when that happens, man, if you can't get to the bowl, what else can the Ravens do to make their team better, right? What else can they do? And, you know, so it's pressure's coming in on some of these quarterbacks, man. Another guy probably could be, even though he's young and missed last season, J.J. McCarthy, because they let go of Sam Darnold, and I would have done the same if I was a GM, but Sam Darnold was awesome last year. No matter how we cut it up, you know, he was a good player last year. So there's a lot of these young quarterbacks that are going to be thrown in the fire. Michael Penix is another guy probably who's got to, you know, they're ended,
right? They ended up failing, right?
I mean, they overdrafted him in a lot of people's eyes last year, and the Falcons have a really good roster, man. You know what I mean? I'm interested to see if they just keep Kirk Cousins for insurance in case he fails. It's fun though, man. I don't know. It's too early for me to do wins and losses. You got to see who comes out of training.
Yeah, exactly. I get you can do early projections. Like I was saying yesterday when it came out, I see 10 to 11 wins, but I said the same thing. I got to wait to see final rosters because stuff could even happen to some of our opponents that we think are going to be good, right? You know, so
I feel good about the division winners. I think the Bills, Chiefs, Ravens, and Texans are probably the division winners. but three other teams have to make the playoffs. And if you look at it, man, I'm just like that I am not as high on the Dolphins as I've been, and I've been critical of them. But you look at it, are the Patriots better than the Dolphins? No. Are the Jets better than them? No. Are the Raiders better than them? No. I don't think the Broncos are better than the Dolphins. Last time they played, it was 70-20. I don't care if they had one good year. I'm still going to put my money on the Dolphins over them. The Chargers, like, we've had their number. We're 2-1 against Herbert and the Chargers. With Harbaugh, it could be a little different. I actually think the Chargers and Dolphins are probably similar, right? But I think we're better than the Colts. I think we're better than the Jags. I think we're better than the Titans. I think we're better than the Browns. I think we're better than the Steelers. They have Mason Rudolph as their quarterback. Even if you say the Bengals are better, well, if it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, and that won't end well, just like it didn't end well for the Jets. So for me, it's like, even if you say the Bengals are better, right, and the Chargers, like, it's hard to go through that AFC and not have – the Dolphins are going to have to monumentally fuck it up, I think, for them not to be at least contending for a wild card. You know what I mean? Like, it's – that schedule is very favorable for them. It really is. It's the best schedule they've had in years. And the bye at Week 12, we're accustomed to a Week 8 bye right in the middle of the season. And it's so hard to play the whole second half of the year without a break. Like, I think that time after that Madrid game and that bye couldn't have come at a perfect time on that schedule. So, like that is a good schedule for the Miami Dolphins. It really is. It's what, the ninth easiest, right, in football?
Yeah. But
like,
it never ends up actually,
right.
We injuries and everything is going to sway. But let's talk for the schedule for a second. What are your feeling on the fact that specifically that they have 5 prime time games? Because, Mike McDaniel 3-10 in prime time games, including the loss to Kansas City. Brian Flores was 4-1 and Adam Gase was 2-5 in prime time. Now you look at it, Neal, and the good thing is, the Jets are one of the primetime games. I think we're better than the Steelers. Those are, I could see a world where out of the 5, we're, at minimum 2 and 3 here. How are you feeling about taking on these primetime games, especially so early on against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, because you got a chance to slay those demons? I mean, you got the Colts to start off, which you should handle your business with. Then you got the Patriots, which you should handle your business with, to build a little confidence, to build a little momentum, to head into Buffalo. And Neal, if we get the Tua that we got that headed into Buffalo last year, or the Tua that headed into Buffalo in 2022, man, if that defense shows up and gets a stop in the final 45 minutes, they could very well upset a team like Buffalo potentially.
Right. And look, dude, I'm never going to be upset if my team's on primetime TV, because I remember the seasons when we were fighting just to get one Thursday night. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to take it for granted, especially the Sunday and Monday night footballs. To me, it's a different level of primetime on those games than a Thursday night football game, right? So, yeah, and look, some of our toughest games are on those games, right? So you start with the Jets. Division rivalry at home. I love that. I love that we have an opportunity to beat a Jets team who has the worst secondary they've had in recent years, right? It's Brandon Stevens is the starting corner opposite of Sauce Gardner. Brandon Stevens was the top 3 worst corner in football last year here in Baltimore. Their safety room is trash. It's his bar. So I think Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle have a chance on prime time to get some of that mojo early in the season. The game against Buffalo, right? Like, we're playing with the house's money, man. Everyone in the world's picking the Buffalo Bills. I'm picking the Buffalo Bills to win that game. The only thing they can do is surprise us, right? And eventually this team's got to put up or shut up when it comes to the division rivals. So I like that they play the Bills. That, win, lose, or draw, it's a division game. It's a game that more than likely people have a pencil to lose, but it gives them an opportunity to change a narrative early. And I hate saying that because they haven't really changed any of those narratives, but I'm all for it there, right? The Steelers, I think we're better than the Steelers this year. That's a winnable primetime game. The Ravens, that's tough. But I remember you and I on a Thursday, and I said I'd bet my house that they couldn't beat Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, and they won. So crazy shit happens in the NFL. And it happens, right? And then, finally that game against the Bengals, like that does scare me because you might have Jamar Chase one-on-one with Storm Dunk. And if that's the occasion, like that could be a long night for us.
Yeah.
But like that's one game. I'll say this. I think Jaden Daniels is going to win the MVP this year. He's my pick. I think the Commanders got an awesome offense, but I sure think we can light up their secondary like we did the last time we played them if everyone's healthy and we come back. Like that's a game that I could see the Dolphins winning too. So let's just say in a world they go 3-3 in primetime. I'm more than okay with that murderer's row of a schedule. That's a tough primetime schedule, man. So, you win 3 of those games, I'm a happy guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're destined to see a little bit more Kohu on the boundary this year. Speaking of the Storm Duck, I think that's one of the ideas is I wouldn't be surprised if they just sign a guy or trade for one guy and they just add one body and they stop there.
Reason, you know this. They're going to add one more starting caliber player to that secondary before the season. We know that. Yeah. We don't know who the player is. We know they're going to add one starting caliber player. Yeah. It might be a safety. It might be a corner. It might be both, right? Like they're going to have $23 million. Just, if you put that in perspective, they got Calais Campbell when that 1 year for what, $1.8 million was it?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you go out and get 3 to 4 guys at that same level of contract, right? Like you might be able to plug a lot of these holes, and you're not going to go out there and find a Darrelle Revis by any means. But like even like a guy like Rasul Douglas to me, Rasul Douglas makes plays on the football. He's inconsistent, but he does bring some experience at least to the secondary. I'd revisit that one. Like, I don't want Bradbury because I think Bradbury's cooked, to be honest. But, like, again, like, add somebody. But, like, and there, a lot of those games, like, are coming after the trade deadline, right? So, if teams come and start off slow, right, there might be opportunities for Miami to make a move for a young player to add it. Like, let's just say Jacksonville's trash again, and they have already traded their first-round pick to the Browns to get Travis Hunter. Would they –
Of course, he cuts out at the time where he's proposing a trade. It makes sense, right? Why wouldn't he cut out about Jacksonville and proposing a trade there? What were you saying, Neil?
I just think there's a lot of opportunity for the Dolphins.
No, what'd you say about Jacksonville? You cut out when you're talking about Jacksonville.
Sorry, I said would they trade a guy like Tyson Campbell maybe if they're at the deadline looking like a bad football team with no first round pick? Would they would they like? There's going to be opportunities. Players get traded at the deadline every year. Yeah. Like just start hot. Like we said, win the game.
Put yourself in a position where you can be a player at the deadline. You know what I mean? So
well, look, you play the Jets twice, and like Jets fans will come at me again like they did last year. Justin Fields is the worst passing quarterback in the middle field in football. Bottom line, he's bad. Anthony Richardson, he might be as bad or worse than Justin Fields. These are the teams you're playing. You know what I mean? Like these are the guys you can beat. So keep your head on a swivel.
And if that front can get home, baby, that front they're clearly depending. They want that front to get home. That front can get home and wreak havoc, then we got something,
Here's a question for you. Who do you think leads the sacks in the Dolphins this year?
Jalen Phillips.
You think he's going to get double digits for the first time?
Yeah. If he's healthy.
Yeah. I love Jalen Phillips.
I think there's a world where, Chop has 12, Phillips has 14, and Chubb could have like 8 in rotation.
Yeah, if that happens, they're a playoff team.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. They're guaranteed.
And we're not even talking about Mo Kamar in his second year. Hey, Grayson Murphy, Grayson, I'm just talking about edges. Grayson Murphy led, the nation in his last year of college in pressure rate. I mean, what if he turns into something? You know what I mean? So, and then, the interior, I think you could see there's a world where you see 4 or 5 in his rookie season from Kenneth Grant. And then you see another 8 from Sealer in the interior. I mean, listen, the key thing with these guys is going to be if we can get home consistently with only having to send 4, like how the Eagles were in the Super Bowl, we can get away with being a little cheap on the back end, right?
Our depth at linebacker is way better too, right?
Yeah, I agreed. Like KJ Britt and everyone you've added, Willie Gay.
Yeah.
I agree 110%, and hey, what if Eugene Asante? I think Eugene Asante can make this team over Channing Tindall because I think he could be a better special teams player.
Oh yeah,
That's
Tindall can go.
That's a 4.48 guy. What if he ends up showing a little something as a rookie? You know what I mean? So
yeah, Tindall can go. We've seen Tindall enough.
Yeah,
he has
for sure.
He's had every opportunity to make a play, and he's never done it.
Agreed.
It's
same goes for Izakama with Theo Weiss and Andrew Armstrong. And honestly, I'll tell you this much: you've added Farrell Brown. If Jalen Connors offers you something, why is there a discussion with Julian Hill?
See ya. Send them packing. Yeah, and I agree, dude. I actually think Theo Weiss is going to make the roster, and I think Andrew Armstrong has. One of them will make the roster. The other will be practice squad. Man, those were good ads. They were good. The Dolphins killed it in all undrafted free agents. They killed it.
I agree. Even I think BJ, that cornerback room, the way if you only add one more body, I think BJ Adams has a really good, chance. You look at that safety room. Okay, Melifanu and Ashley Davis, if they can stay healthy, I think we got something with those two. But even if they can't, I'm intrigued by year 2 of Patrick McMorris. I think Dante Trader can offer you special teams upside, and I think John Sanders could quietly offer you something
Sanders
too.
Is a player, man. He's a player.
Yeah, I think
they're going to have a very good practice squad at worst out of all this.
Yeah, I agree.
It's going to be a lot better than we've seen in years past. Yeah. And I'm going to say something that's going to be crazy, and I can't believe I'm saying this. I think when we head into this season, you look at our offensive line from left to right: Patrick Paul, James Daniels, Aaron Brewer, Jonah Savanea, and Austin Jackson.
Mm-hmm. Top 15 if they're healthy, baby.
It's a good line, and I will say Larry Borum as your 6th offensive lineman doesn't suck, and even a guy that I hate like Liam Eichenberg as your 7th lineman with starting experience isn't a complete disaster.
Bro, I think Keon Smith is their swing guard,
and Keon Smith's a guy they've liked for years.
Yeah.
So I actually think. Sure, next year in the draft, I'd like to probably see them draft a guy in the 4th round that could be a depth guy, right? I'm not going to say that it's all figured out and it's all solved. Yeah. But I'm pretty confident to say that this is definitely the best offensive line that Tua Tagovailoa has had.
I'm hoping Josh Preby shows something like Andrew Meyer did and surprises us. And with that athleticism he has, maybe he jumps a guy like Eichenberg. I'm hoping Josh Preby's athleticism, flashes and he maybe jumps him, because I thought Andrew Meyer was better than Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg last year in the preseason. Sure enough, Andrew Meyer is our backup center right now. So hopefully they can strike something with Preby. I don't know. I'm hoping, because I think that's the only place where we're lacking in terms of when you get outside of the cornerback room. I think the depth, I'm not a big Keon Smith fan. I'm not a Eichenberg fan. I'm not a Borum fan. When you got Austin Jackson, who's missed more games than Tua, when, you got an unknown in James Daniels coming off that Achilles heel, I would have liked a little bit more of an assurance in terms of at guard depth. You know what I mean? That was my issue with the Marshall pick. I thought they were better. I would have rather drafted Jackson Slater.
I'll give you a name who's out there that I think makes a ton of sense, and you can get him for a good deal. Brandon Sheriff.
I don't think he's going to take anything less than starter, because he's been a starter his whole career.
Yeah,
I think you're going to have to go, and again, check out me and Alf tomorrow. We talked about this. It's probably going to have to be a guy like a Daniel Brunskill or Cody Whitehair, some guy who could play multiple interior positions.
I like Whitehair.
But they're used to obviously playing a 2 role as well. Like, the problem with guys like Will Hernandez and Sheriff, they're probably going to wait it out to see if in camp a starting spot opens up.
Yeah, I would take Will Hernandez in a second, though.
Yeah,
I really would.
He's just not going to. He's probably not going to take that.
If he doesn't have a job and it's June and he takes a 3rd guard job, I would sign him in.
I would sign him in a heartbeat.
$2-3 million a year, I could care less. Get a guy that's a bona fide starter like him. And I will say this: in the whole landscape of the entire NFL, when you look at upgrades. No, it's hard pressed to find anyone that upgraded anything more than the Dolphins upgraded the guard position with Daniels and Savanaya. Yeah. Like, from Jones and Eichenberg, it is. You had what were they, like 62 and 63 overall in football to Daniels and Savanaya? If those guys are middle of the pack, drastic. You agree it's the best line Tua's had here?
No, because we haven't seen it yet. I think our best line was what we fielded for that Denver Broncos game.
So Isaiah Wynn,
Taron Armstead, Connor Williams, Robert Hunt, and Austin Jackson.
Yeah, that
now
that you say
do that. I think yeah, I know, but do I think the potential's there if all these guys stay healthy to be a top 15 line in year one together? Yes, but it comes down to Austin Jackson. Can he stay healthy? And is James Daniels going to look like the guy before the Achilles injury or after? Because I think Savaianaya and Brew will be fine. And is Patrick Paul going to give us at minimum competent play? That's what that's going to come down to. But the potential is there. But
Patrick Paul's probably my biggest concern on the offense. I'll be honest. And it's not that I don't like him.
No, Jackson's health, bro.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah.
Another
tackle could definitely be needed on this team,
agree.
No doubt.
One that could play guard and tackle, but Jedrick Wills, I can't believe how little money he went for. I would have thrown it out there. But guys, I got to get out of here. I appreciate all of y'all for coming through. Over 460 of you in the room right now. Smash the like button, subscribe if you're new. Check me out tomorrow morning with Alpha Arciega from 3 yards per carry. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, so make sure you check that out. Until next time, you already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day. We'll see y'all in the next one.